Hey, welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. What have we got this time around? We've got PromptFoo. I always put the links below. So PromptFoo, I think I've come across the name before, but either hadn't realised what it does or what it is supposed to do. But they've recently been acquired by OpenAI, and for probably reasons that will make sense in a few minutes. So what is it? Okay, so if you've got your any type of chatbot, okay, any chat interface going into an AI, then PromptFoo is probably going to be something that you want to have a look at. So even if you've built your own custom GPTs, or you've got, like I said, you've built your own AI agent or anything like that, where there's a possibility of external access coming into your, to your sort of chatbot. And the idea is, it's sort of got a collection of things that will help with checking your prompts, because I think it's almost like inevitable. And I'm always blown away by this. Like computer viruses, of all the things that you could do with all the amazing equipment and technology and knowledge that we have. And, you just have to go and do something stupid like build viruses or something. But hey ho, human nature. But in the AI world, of course, it's things like prompt injection, where, and I've seen demos where you can put whatever you think are controls around things, but the AI, and by the way, this isn't just OpenAI's or Claude or whatever. I've seen it on a few of these models. They've got better, but, and when I say they, I'm meaning those vendors, OpenAI, Anthropic and Google and whatnot. But still, I've seen situations where prompt injections can sort of do things that you're not even aware of. So you think, okay, I've got an AI chatbot that's going to do this for you. And then the prompt injection takes whatever it is and does other bits and nefarious things. But the other thing as well is that it can really jailbreak your AI chatbot. And so if you're using API keys or other access to other systems, there's a real possibility that they can be stolen by very, I was going to say aggressive ways of getting the AI to actually release those API keys. Okay, now there are, like I say, there are controls in place. There's things like guardrails, etc. But there's back to PromptFoo, one of the things that it gives you is red teaming. So what it will do is go and have a look at direct and indirect prompt injections. It tries to jailbreak, like I just mentioned, and tests your guardrails, basically. So guardrails, if you don't know, where you're telling the AI, never give out my password, never do the, always check what's going out, all these type of things. These are guardrails, basically. But that's what this red teaming part of PromptFoo does. But also it checks the data and the PII leaks, and that's really important, because there's an awful lot of AI generated code, and I'm not going to name, well, I am, Replit, Lovable, all that type of stuff. If you don't know what to ask or what not to ask, or even worse, what to actually do to actually stop this, you could have PII leaks. So PII, personal identifiable information. Okay, I've seen lots of demos, and it's actually not the platforms that necessarily are at fault. It's the, well, I suppose it is in a way, but you know what I mean? It's the incorrect use and knowing about this stuff. So that's another one of the red teaming things that it can check. Am I leaking an email or some other personal information or an address, or even worse, am I leaking, bank details or something stupid like that? So it does a lot of stuff on red teaming, and there's a lot of other sections. Evaluations is also a good one, where you can use the evaluations on your prompts, because let's face it, if you're prompting an AI, will it do the same thing every time? And is it doing what you actually want it to do every time? So there's evaluations. There's a lot more to that, obviously, but I'm just skipping through them. Tried to keep to 5 minutes, but there we go. The other one is code scanning. You can hook it up to your IDE or GitHub or your wherever your code repo is, and it can look for all of those sorts of prompt injections, PII exposures and such like that at the code level. Okay, so you know that's pretty cool. It's also looking for model security, so it's scanning across different models, you know, where you're working, especially on dare I say open source models or locally running models. So it's scanning for malicious code and backdoors and testing against, you know, model attacks and things like that we've mentioned a little bit. Anyway, it's worth going into a little bit more there. And guardrails that I've said, you know, that, you know, you can guard, or you can certainly try to guard what responses are retrieved from your chatbot or whatever, but also the fact that, you know, it's easy to miss, you know, even really obvious ones. So that's what this guardrails aspect of this PromptFoo does. And then the final thing, it's got MCP integration, model context protocol. So there's a whole bit there about how you can use this with an MCP. So PromptFoo with a MCP to actually do real-time monitoring for PII, sensitive data, all the prompt injection stuff that I talked about. So if you've got your own application, you can use an MCP client to connect to the MCP server of PromptFoo. If you don't understand any of that, don't worry. It's in the coding world. I've got some just 5 mins on MCPs and things. But anyway, but the good news is PromptFoo is, they've got a community version, free forever, which is always a good thing to start with, isn't it? And it does have a lot of the stuff that I've mentioned, okay? But obviously, you know, for free, you're then going to go to things like maybe the enterprise, or even they've got an on-prem version. The enterprise one, by the way, gives you API access and all this sort of stuff. But like I say, I think if you're a company that have got chatbots and you know, or anything like that, you can actually use PromptFoo on premise. And when I say on premise, but you know what I mean, in your environment, your hardware, your infrastructure, basically. Okay, so you know, it's definitely worth looking at, and it's one that seems to be relatively easy to follow, especially things like the red teaming aspect, where you can check all of these. You know, it does an automated check of all your, you know, prompt injections, PII sort of data. It's definitely worth checking out, I reckon. And funny enough, it doesn't just go for, like I said, full, you know, companies. If you're even building this as a personal project, you know, on Lovable or Replit or any of those sorts of things, then, you know, you need, because you're at risk. If you leak PII data, it's you personally that is responsible for that. So it's a good thing to maybe check these things. Anyway, another sort of elongated 5 minutes, but that's what I've got this time around. So anyway, wherever you are, have a good day, a good week, wherever you are in the world, and take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.